All right, here comes that idiot Rick Perry who decided to throw glasses on because it makes him look more cerebral, but the bullshit coming out of his mouth is basically ridiculous. This guy is supposed to be an evangelist, and he claims that the Republicans are straight shooters. He couldn't stand Donald Trump when he was running against him and talked about Donald Trump like a dog. And now that he's out of the race, and he's been out of the race for a long period of time, he's willing to throw his hat in there to be Donald Trump's vice president, where everybody else is running for cover. This guy is a politician, and he's a dog of a politician.
As promised, joining us now, former presidential candidate and former Texas Governor Rick Perry. Governor, welcome. Great to have you with us this morning.
Thank you, Martha.
You have looked at plenty of polls over the course of your career. What do you make of these new Quinnipiac numbers and what Bill just laid out?
Well, I think it's an indicator that this is going to be a close race. You know, one of the fascinating things, Martha, that I don't know whether anyone's talked about yet or not, is how important the military vote is going to be. And you think about Florida, you think about Ohio, and you think about Pennsylvania. Those states have some substantial military, both active duty and veterans.
Okay, let's just take it from the top. When you're talking about Pennsylvania, okay? Pennsylvania goes the way of Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. You can have all the veterans you want, okay, but if you don't win Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, okay, in the state of Pennsylvania, you pretty much are not going to win that state. Now, there have been some instances where the Republicans have won one area, like Pittsburgh. Republicans never win Philadelphia, but they have in the past won Pittsburgh and the rest of the state, and that would cause the state to flip red. But short of winning Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, you are not winning Pennsylvania. Now, you got the same situation in Ohio, where you deal with Cleveland, Akron, and I believe there's one other large city in Ohio. If you can't win those, especially Cleveland, if you can't win Cleveland, you are not going to win Ohio, okay? Now, Florida's a different story. Florida is pretty diverse. So Florida's got the ability to go back and forth. Large Hispanic population down in Florida, large retired population down in Florida. You got a bunch of New Yorkers, which tend to go Democratic down in Florida. But then you got various other areas of Florida. So Florida can go back and forth. So if they were going to make an argument for Florida, I would have to give it serious consideration. But any argument they want to make for Pennsylvania, they can flip and forget it, okay? Now, let's see what the former idiot governor Rick Perry, who has no backbone, wants to say further about this.
And Donald Trump is way, way ahead with the military-oriented voter. And I think that that's something that is going to have a powerful impact on this election.
I don't believe that. I mean, I think that Clinton has more support from the military than Trump does, only because Trump basically, he talks a good game, but then when he starts talking about issuing orders to the military to perform torture on people, he starts talking about killing families of terrorists, which is obviously against the Geneva Convention. And he really doesn't have a plan on defeating ISIS. He could talk about he's going to be so strong and he's going to go in there and get rid of ISIS right away. That's a load of bullshit. So for Perry to say that he's got this tremendous military support, in my opinion, that's just not true.
Secretary of State Clinton has some real issues that are going to have to be addressed by her and the Democrats, dealing with the issues of Benghazi, dealing with the lack of support that is perceived, and I will suggest to you is real, with the men and women in the United States military and the veterans.
So we see strength, perhaps, with military voters for Donald Trump. definitely with men. He does very well with men. We know that he has problems with women, with the Hispanic vote. But let's talk about your party for a moment, because that's where the focus is this week as he heads to Washington on Thursday to talk to Paul Ryan. Well, let's play this soundbite from Paul Ryan. I want to get your thoughts on this, Governor.
He's the nominee. I'll do whatever he wants with respect to the convention. And the point I would make is, I just think it's important that all wings of the party come together to get ourselves at full strength. And we shouldn't pretend, you've written about this, we shouldn't pretend that we're there. We're not. It's been a while since we spoke, and the point is, we just need to get to know each other. And my goal is to help put together a unified party that sticks to our principles.
Now that's Paul Ryan, and what he just said is 100% reasonable. Okay, but Trump still attacked him on it. So you tell me if Trump is rational or not. Anyway, let's get back to dumbass.
Says we shouldn't pretend that we're there. I mean, you look at what Donald Trump has said the past week about taxes, increasing taxes. He doesn't talk about cutting spending. He's talking about raising spending for the military, raising spending for the VA, which a lot of people are of course, in favor of. But none of these, go along with real sort of conservative orthodoxy. And he said himself, it's not called the Conservative Party. It's called the Republican Party. So what party is this now to you, Governor?
Well, it's the party that it's always been. We've had disparate views. You think back to 08 and to 12, there were individuals who didn't agree completely with our nominees at that particular point in time, but we all settled in and supported them. I think you will see a very strong coalition and coalescing behind Donald Trump as we go along. Everybody needs their time to have the conversations, and I admire Speaker Ryan for reaching out and saying, hey, we need to talk to each other. There's nothing wrong with that. You never heard him say never Trump. And so we're going through a process, and the process works. And I think that was my point that I made over the course of the last few days. Listen, Donald Trump wasn't my first choice. I was my first choice. And Donald Trump wasn't my second choice. But he was the choice of the vast majority of the Republican primary voters that are going to go into this process and do that from my perspective. So, we'll settle in. It's this simple from my perspective, Martha. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Supreme Court Justice appointments.
Now, that's something that that's something that I agree with both sides on. It's Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton and the Supreme Court. That's my number one issue, and I damn sure don't want Donald Trump appointing 1 to 3 Supreme Court justices. And on the other side, the GOP damn sure don't want Hillary Clinton nominating 3, progressive Supreme Court justices to the court. So that's really where the fight is going to be as far as I'm concerned. And he's basically going to enunciate that as well.
That is going to have 40 years worth of impact on our country, not 4 or 8 years as this election
It's
will.
interesting because Democrats make the same argument, when they look at that picture, and that's the conversation that they want to have here as well. I found it interesting yesterday that Senator Marco Rubio came out and said, take my name off the list. If it's on the list, I'm not interested. I do not want to be the vice president. You see people in your party who are clearly placing their bet that this is not going to go the GOP's way, and they don't want to have any of their fingerprints on any part of this race. What do you think about that?
I don't want to have my fingerprints on empowering and enabling Hillary Clinton. That's what this is about for me. When you look at that Supreme Court appointment that's going to be made to fill Justice Scalia's spot, when you think about that there may be 2 more in the next 4 years, then I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that there is an individual that is listening to people, strict constitutionalists like Rudy Giuliani, individuals.
Rudy Giuliani is a pig. He's a liar, and he should have been prosecuted for a lot of the deaths of the 9/11 first responders, because it was his buddy that gave them communication equipment that didn't work, and they knew it didn't work. So for you to bring up that prick Giuliani's name is an affront to the American people.
Like myself, who have a rather unquestionable conservative record for 30 years, those are the kind of individuals that I want to have impact on Donald Trump as he's making these decisions, and you can't do it if you're outside the tent.
And then the other thing is, you guys don't even know who Donald Trump would nominate for the Supreme Court. And that's been a big fear, and that's why a lot of the Republicans are talking about trying to get Garland out there, because at least you know that you got somewhat of a moderate, and in my opinion, he's more right-leaning than anything else on that Supreme Court. And I'm hoping that you guys stick to your guns and don't confirm him, so that when Clinton wins, and if she's the nominee, or she will win. I'm not, I'm pretty sure about that. That we get 1 to 3 progressive Supreme Court justices out there, so they can get rid of a lot of the bullshit that the conservative court has allowed to come into place, particularly voting rights, particularly Citizens United, getting that bullshit out of here, and basically getting the country back to a more socially just condition, rather than this ultra-conservative bullshit position that we're in right now. And you, Rick Perry, need to stop campaigning for the vice presidency, because he's not going to give it to you. He's not going to name you.
What about his comments about women? Because we're going to show an ad in a little while where he goes right after Hillary Clinton, talking about the way that she ate cake at his wedding. There's going to be no holding back from the Clinton campaign or the PACs that are supporting Hillary Clinton, which is where this one came from, I should point out, in going after the comments that he has made. And they will put him in a situation where he's going to have to be defending those remarks all the time. You are, as you pointed out, a person who has a very conservative record and a very, spiritual background as well. Are you okay with the things that he says?
Yeah, and you're also a person with no goddamn backbone. But it's a proven fact that Trump is a misogynist. He'd be better off just admitting it and saying that going forward he's going to do better than claiming that he's not.
If people are going to focus on how somebody eats, whether it's Donald Trump talking about John Kasich or about Hillary Clinton, they're missing the whole point here. There are going to be a lot of ways.
They're not missing the point. It's a point of character, and Donald Trump has no flipping character. He's a prick. He's a racist. He's a misogynist. He's an Islamophobe. This guy's got so many negatives going against him, but then apparently he's a reflection of the 10 million people that have voted for him, that are willing to close their eyes, drink the Kool-Aid, and follow the marching band. He's no better than Jim Jones, who took all those people down to Guyana and committed suicide. People are just following a Pied Piper, and thank God there are more people that have basically seen him for what he is, and that includes Republicans that are unwilling to support him. You, unfortunately, are pandering for a vice presidency spot, and that's a damn shame.
Is to distract away from the issues that are really important. How do you get this economy back on track? I do believe Donald Trump does have ideas and concepts that can get this country back on track, bringing those $1.5 trillion back offshore into this country to develop this economy. One of the things as a governor that is music to my ears coming out of Donald Trump is when he talks about the devolving of power out of Washington, D.C. for education purposes, for example, not leaving those Common Core in place, and those No Child Left Behind.
Which was created by the Bushes, if I'm not mistaken. So are you actually admitting that No Child Left Behind was a bad idea and a failure? I don't believe it. And one of your boys from Texas. Hope springs eternal.
All of those Washington-centric programs, bring them back to the states where they belong. All of those things are real conservative issues, and again, how somebody eats, that's a distraction.
I got
Frankly,
it.
we need to be focused.
We're going to talk to Katrina Pearson. We'll show the ad that we just mentioned, what we're talking about here, so you can get a look at it at home, folks, and see what you think. Governor Parry, always good to talk to you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, always good to listen to your bullshit.